It started with a sound he would never forget. The quiet click of a door closing behind him. No shouting, no final words. Just silence. That was the night Noah Reed realized he was completely alone. For 12 years, he had built his life like a fortress. Career, marriage, house on the hill, expensive suits, and an ego tall enough to touch the clouds. He thought pain was something that happened to other people. But that evening, when his wife walked out, the fortress cracked, and through those cracks, pain poured in. He spent the next hours pacing his living room, replaying every choice he'd ever made. The whiskey bottle on the counter was half empty. The framed wedding photo stared back like an accusation. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky, and Noah whispered, "What happened to me?" The answer came in the silence. Nothing dramatic, just a slow, suffocating truth. He had been living fast enough to outrun his feelings, until they caught him. For weeks he drifted. He stopped showing up to work. Friends texted, he ignored them. He told himself he needed rest, but really, he just didn't know how to exist without being needed by someone. Bills piled up. He sold his car, then the house. By winter, Noah was sleeping on a fold-out couch in a friend's basement, staring at the cracked ceiling and wondering how a man who once had everything could lose it all so quietly. One night he grabbed his jacket and walked through the city until his feet blistered. He ended up beneath an overpass, where a handful of homeless men were gathered around a trash can fire. He hesitated, then stepped closer. An older man looked up, his face lined like worn leather. "Bad night?" he asked. Noah laughed bitterly. "Bad year." The man nodded toward the flames. "Sit. Fire doesn't judge." They talked until sunrise. The stranger's name was Caleb, a veteran who'd seen too much and lost even more. When Noah confessed everything, the divorce, the collapse, the shame, Caleb listened quietly and said, "Pain's a teacher, son. The kind that doesn't grade on mercy." Noah frowned. "So what am I supposed to learn?" Caleb poked the fire. "Depends on whether you're ready to stop hating the lesson." Those words landed like a stone in Noah's chest. For the first time, he realized he had spent months fighting his pain instead of hearing it. He went back to that bridge the next morning, the same bridge he used to cross driving to his old office. Below, the river was dark, endless, and cold. He stared at it and whispered, "If pain's a teacher, then teach me." It wasn't dramatic, no lightning bolt or epiphany, just surrender, a quiet acceptance that maybe, just maybe, the hurt had something to show him. From that moment, everything changed, not suddenly, but steadily. He started writing. At first, it was scribbles in a cheap notebook, questions, regrets, flashes of memory. Then pages turned into patterns and patterns turned into understanding. He realized he had spent years confusing achievement with worth. He had measured love in validation, success in applause. But pain stripped him of all that, and what was left was something raw, honest, human. Every morning he walked to a nearby park and wrote for hours. The cold bit at his fingers, but he didn't stop. He was rebuilding himself word by word. One day, he found a notice pinned to a cafe door. "Writers wanted. Local community paper." He almost walked past it. Then he heard Caleb's voice in his head. "Stop hating the lesson." So he went inside. The editor, a woman in her 50s named Mara, asked for a sample. He handed her one of his notebook pages, a raw piece titled "The Day Pain Spoke Back." She read it silently, then said, "You wrote this?" "Yeah," Noah said, nervous. "It's not bad," she smiled. "It's honest. Write me another one." That single chance turned into a column. People started reading, responding, thanking him for putting into words what they couldn't say out loud. For the first time, Noah felt something he hadn't in years: purpose. He wrote every day, not for fame, not for money, but for healing. His pain had become his material, his mirror, and his map. And slowly, the man who had once been broken began to see that pain wasn't destroying him. It was recreating him. It's strange how life circles back. 2 years after that night under the overpass, Noah Reed walked onto a small stage in front of 200 people. He wasn't wearing a suit, no spotlight glamour, no fancy introductions, just him, a microphone, and a story carved from scars. Behind him, the screen read, "How Pain Became My Greatest Teacher." He looked out at the faces, strangers, each carrying invisible burdens, and took a breath. "I used to think pain was my enemy," he began. "Now I know it was the only thing brave enough to tell me the truth." The audience went still. He told them about the night his life fell apart, about the basement couch, the bridge, the old man named Caleb who showed him that pain wasn't punishment. It was instruction. He spoke about how suffering stripped him of everything fake, leaving only what was real. People cried quietly. Some nodded, like they'd been waiting for someone to say those words out loud. After the talk, a young woman approached him. Her eyes were red, voice trembling. "My brother took his life last year," she said. "I thought I'd never understand why, but listening to you, it felt like you were talking to him." Noah placed a hand on her shoulder. "I wasn't talking to him," he said softly. "I was talking for him." That night, back in his apartment, a small sunlit place filled with notebooks and plants, Noah sat at his desk and stared at the blank page. He realized the pain he once begged to go away had turned him into something unbreakable, not because it vanished, but because he had learned to carry it differently. He wrote until dawn. Words poured out like water, finally breaking through a dam. By morning, he had the first draft of his book, The Lesson Beneath the Hurt. It wasn't polished, but it was real. Every page soaked with honesty, loss, and rebirth. When the book was published, it didn't explode overnight. It grew quietly, passed from hand to hand, heart to heart. Letters started arriving, from soldiers, widows, students, addicts, and ordinary people who said his words made them feel less alone. Noah read each one with a trembling heart, because he understood something most people didn't. The goal was never to erase pain. It was to transform it. Months later, he went back to find Caleb. The overpass looked the same, but the old man was gone. A city worker said he'd passed away that winter. Noah stood there for a long time, staring at the ashes of that old fire. He reached into his bag, pulled out his book, and placed it on the ground. On the first page, he'd written, "For Caleb, who showed me that pain is not a wound to hide, but a teacher to learn from." Then he whispered, "Lesson learned, old friend." As he walked away, he realized something beautiful. Pain had given him everything success never could: empathy, humility, and the courage to help others heal. Years passed. Noah's story spread around the world. He spoke in schools, prisons, and recovery centers, not as a guru or celebrity, but as a student, still learning, still growing. During one interview, a journalist asked, "If you could go back in time and erase all your pain, would you?" Noah smiled quietly. "No, because without pain, I'd still be asleep. Pain woke me up to life." The interviewer leaned forward. "And what did life teach you?" He looked straight at the camera. "That the same pain that breaks you can also build you, if you stop fighting it long enough to listen." That quote went viral. Millions shared it. But Noah didn't measure success by likes anymore. He measured it by letters that began, "Your story saved me." And somewhere in that quiet, he realized that every scar, every failure, every sleepless night had a purpose. They weren't signs of weakness. They were proof that he had been strong enough to stay. He once thought the worst thing that ever happened to him was losing everything, but now he understood. The worst thing would have been never learning from it. Moral of the story: pain will visit everyone. You can curse it, numb it, run from it, but it will still find you. The only choice you have is what to do with it when it arrives. Noah's journey reminds us that pain isn't your enemy. It's the doorway to growth, strength, and clarity. It teaches you what comfort never could, who you really are when everything else is gone. So, the next time life breaks you, remember, you're not being punished, you're being prepared. Pain is shaping you into the person you were always meant to become. And if this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because someone out there might need this reminder too. Your pain isn't the end of your story. It's just the beginning of your awakening.